How did the framers resolve the conflict about the powers of the legislative branch? Under the Articles of Confederation, Congress wasn't really able to deal with economic problems, but most importantly, it wasn't strong enough to control the acts of the state governments. The framers were actually convinced that the state legislatures were passing laws that violated the property rights of the citizens. Whenever Congress passed laws, it was up to the states to enforce them. Congress couldn't raise taxes to support itself, and it could only ask the states for money, which would be pointless since many states ignored congressional requests for funds. Most of the framers believed that there was a need for a stronger national government, although some still disagreed because of the past experience with British rule. So, at the end of the day, they came up with a goal. The problem facing the framers was to create a national government that was strong enough to protect the rights of the people, and yet not so strong that it would endanger those rights. Some framers believed that the state governments had too much power because most of them could turn down any congressional requests. Some believed that there should be a strong national government because it would be easier to control the people. James Madison argued that the Congress should keep the powers that it had under the Articles of Confederation, as well as Congress making the laws that the state legislature was prevented from making. He thought that Congress should also be given the power to reject or turn down any laws made by the state legislature. Most framers disagreed with Madison's views on having a general language because it would mean the government would have too much power. The framers also didn't agree with the government having more power over the state legislature because of what happened when Parliament ruled in Britain. The solution was making the Constitution with both a general and specific language, where it wouldn't be too specific nor too general. Framers solved the problem of distributing power between the state government and the national government by giving a lot of power to the national government and figuring out one general language, but also including some aspects of a specific language. Okay, so most of you probably know this one. What are the enumerated powers of Congress? Article 1 deals with the legislative branch, and it makes up most of the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 includes 17 enumerated powers. Some are like imposing and collect taxes and duties, borrow money, regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the states, coin money, establish post offices, declare war, and raise and support an army and navy. Yes, the federal government should regulate postal services because it would be a more effective way of protecting our country from harmful threats that can be sent through. Now, what are the general powers of Congress? Article 1, Section 8 also includes 2 general statements of power given to Congress. These powers were given to Congress to provide for the common defense and the general welfare, which is also known as the common good. This is the General Welfare Clause. As well as making these laws that shall be necessary and proper, this is called the Necessary and Proper Clause. Article 1, Section 8 states that the General Welfare Clause, which is to provide for the common defense, as well as the Necessary and Proper Clause, which does anything necessary for the country. What limits are there on the powers of Congress? Article 1, Section 9 prohibits Congress from banning the slave trade before 1808, suspending the privilege of the writs of habeas corpus except in emergencies. In Latin, habeas corpus actually means have a body. A writ of habeas corpus orders the government to deliver a person it has arrested to court of law. Passing ex post facto laws. This is a law that makes an act a crime even though the act was legal when it was taken place. Passing bills of attainder. This is a legislative act that declared a person guilty of violating a law and set the punishment without a court trial. Pretty rough, huh? Taxing anything exported from the state. Taking money from the treasury without first passing a law to do so, and granting titles of nobility. Necessary and proper clause. Now, how do the other branches check the power of Congress? Congress is actually divided in two houses, which means it's bicameral. This is a check on Congress to pass laws. The executive branch also has a check on Congress. If a bill in Congress has passed in both houses, then it would go to the president for approval and signature. The president can choose to veto a bill or choose not to sign it. In order to override the veto, you would need 2/3 of Congress. The U.S. Supreme Court has a power to declare a law that Congress made unconstitutional. This means that the law or action is not permitted by the Constitution. Okay, so would these bills be allowed to become laws under the Constitution? A bill is a proposed law. First off, if you used only the enumerated powers of Congress to decide whether to pass a law, what problems might arise? I would say that other laws that would be necessary for the public good and for the needs of the people wouldn't be able to be made since they are only implied and not written down in the Constitution. Secondly, if you used only the general powers of Congress to decide whether to pass a law, what problems might arise? The laws that had to be made that were listed in the Constitution wouldn't be made and wouldn't be beneficial since they are in a way more important and take a great part in the determining of how we limit the government. Now, there are also bills under consideration to become laws, like a law to allow government to keep watch over websites on the internet to protect children from potentially harmful material. Also, allowing government to draft citizens to serve in the armed forces, as well as providing money to pay the expenses of the Army and Navy, allowing the executive branch to conduct a space exploration program, allowing government to impose fines as a punishment for industries that pollute the air, and requiring government to use tax money to provide medical assistance. Now, let's review. What disagreements about the powers of Congress did the framers have? How did they resolve these disagreements? Some framers believed that there should be a strong national government because the compromises about the representation and slavery reduced resistance to increase the power of the national government, as well as protecting the rights of the people. Although others thought it would suppress their rights and freedoms because the central government was more powerful and would be tyrant. They solved these problems by both having a general language and a specific one. What enumerated powers does Article 1, Section 8 grant to Congress? It grants all the enumerated powers, as well as the two general statements of power given to Congress. What general powers does Article 1, Section 8 grant to Congress? Why are these general powers necessary? I would say that imposing and collecting taxes and duties, borrow money, regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the states, coin money, establish post offices, declare war, raise and support army and navy, and these are necessary to deal with many very important issues that couldn't be handled by one branch only. Now, what are the limits to the Article 1 place on the powers of Congress? Explain how these limitations protect the rights of the citizens. It limits what things each house can do, since it is a bicameral legislature. This protects the rights of the citizens by imposing laws that appeal more to them in their community. Now, explain some ways in which the executive and judicial branches can check the powers of Congress. For this, I only put one way for each, but there are probably many more. For the executive branch, they sign or veto bills. For the judicial branch, it declares laws unconstitutional. So in some ways, that's how the framers resolved the conflicts about the powers of the legislative branch.